What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I am your showrunner for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V. Recording this on June 24th here, and we have another player spotlight. So on this episode, we are going to talk about a number of lower classification stars here on the 1A and 2A level of Colorado high school football ahead of this 2025 season. So I got two players I'm going to talk about, and then Kodey and Mazen should be on here later on in the episode to talk about their one player each. So there you go. Make sure you check out our other player spotlight episodes after this one. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop right into it. Alright, so the first player we are going to talk about is Jayce Newbill, the 6'3", 170-pound athlete from Berthoud. He will be a senior this next year. And for Jayce Newbill here, I'm going to mostly talk about him at wide receiver. He does play both ways at safety, but I do think there's a little bit more upside here at receiver. And so with that in mind, just looking at his stats here from his junior year, he had 25 receptions, 326 receiving yards in a very stacked wide receiving room who had a lot of mouths to feed, if I'm being fairly honest there. So for him to kind of carve out his own role over at Berthoud was definitely big time. He had some solid games here and there, including against the 3A defending state champs Thompson Valley. He had 5 receptions for 174 yards in a 1-score loss against them. Against Valley, he had a big game. It was a blowout game where he had 6 receptions for 64 yards. Against Eden, 3 for 35. And so on and so on. So there you go there. Like I said, a very crowded receiving room as well. And this is a team in Berthoud that does like to throw the ball here. And so there are 2 other big-time receivers that were making plays. And so for him to make the most out of his touches, that's definitely something to keep in mind there. But with that being said, let's go ahead and look at his film breakdown and talk about his 3 highest grades and 3 lowest grades. Overall, though, at receiver, the grade I gave him was a 75.9 going into his senior year based on the film that I have seen so far. The highest grades that I got him, these grades or these categories will be out of 5 here. 4.3 for balance, body control, and ball skills, and then 4.2 for route tree and jump ball. First off, for a 2A team in Berthoud, they have a better route tree than a lot of 4A teams and then a lot of 5A teams as well. They like to pass the ball. He's running a number of different routes, and he's getting active. And so that definitely helps out his rating right there. And then on top of that, I mean, Jayce Newbill, he is a big-bodied receiver who has good balance. He could go up and get the ball as well, has a solid vertical, and has good ball skills. He has strong hands. He could go up there and make a play. And from a taller receiver, that's really what you want. You want somebody who could be a jump ball guy and go make a play. And on top of that, I mean, he has a solid vertical too. Now, his 3 lowest grades, I would say, these grades are out of 5 here. Tackle breaking, blocking, and release. Did not see a lot of blocking film, so this is kind of a default grade right here, but I'm sure he's a solid blocker. And then I gave him a 3 for tackle breaking and release. I do think, let's start with release first here. While he does run a nice route tree here, he could do better with his releases, have cleaner releases off the line when he's getting jammed, right off the bat. There's a little bit of a struggle, right? And so I'd like to see a bigger variety of releases. I'd like to see him, really beat that press and get open, get some separation. And so that's definitely something I think could be improved on. I also gave him a 3 for tackle breaking. He just doesn't break a lot of tackles. He could probably run with better contact balance. He'll make big plays and big catches, but he's not too big of a threat after the catch, which I do think is something he can definitely work on to round out his game a little bit better. But looking at all the grades, so here's the full film breakdown. Let's start with the categories out of 10. Frame gave him an 8.2, 6'3", 170. I like the height at 6'3". I think he could definitely fill out, but, this is a solid spot to be at. Versatility, I gave him an 8. He doesn't play special teams, I don't think. He might do it this year, so we'll see with all the players that they are losing. But he does play both ways, so that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're a college coach. Hands gave him an 8.1, and then route running gave him a 6. Which is also one of his lowest grades, actually, and that's one of the ones that I missed here. I just think he could get better separation in general, pay a little bit more attention to detail, to, all the little things, head fakes, running crisp routes, making sure that they all look similar, getting good separation by being a crisp route runner. I think those are all things, along with his release, that he could definitely be working on. Now, these other categories are out of 5, blocking 3 out of 5, ball skills 4.3, release 3, agility 3.8, speed is solid 4, probably runs a solid 4.5, like a late 4.5 to mid 4.5. Acceleration is a 4, contested catch is a 4, route tree 4.2, run after the catch threat 3.8, jump ball 4.2, tackle breaking 3, and then balance body control for a 4.3 with an overall grade of a 75.9 here. Look, the 6'3 receiver, he has good hands with a great ability to adjust to the ball and make tough catches. He is also a solid enough athlete where his speed and agility gets him open fairly enough. Now, notice how I just said speed and agility here. But he is extremely raw at receiver, though, and needs to refine his route running and releases in order to create more separation. And I'd also like to see him do more with the ball in his hands in the sense of creating yards rather than just running in a straight line. And so I think there's definitely some potential. I think he's somebody who could play on the next level. We'll see how much work he put in this last offseason and how that pays off here. As of right now, I know we're in the middle of camp season, but as of right now, June 24th, he has one offer to a D3 Minnesota North, so there is that. A big senior year would go a long way, and lucky for him, this is an offense that does pass the ball quite a bit. Now, the tough thing is that he is losing his quarterback, Skylar Stryker, who was very good last year. Berthoud in general is losing a number of players, so Jayce Newbill will have to do a lot on both sides of the ball here. So there's going to be some opportunities. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for him to get the ball, but there could be some growing pains for sure. Let's talk about some of the big games, though, where he can show off a little bit here and potentially earn a bigger offer. So right off the bat, they play the defending 3A state champs in Thompson Valley on the 29th, so that'll be a good one. That's a good defense. Then they play Wellington. That's a team with a lot of good athletes over there. A big game against them would go a long way. They then play Res Christian. Like I said, a lot of good athletes over there as well. And then on the 24th and 31st of October, they play University and Eden. Both teams perennial playoff teams, really, and always having good athletes, even if they are not proven quite yet like Jayce's. So there's going to be some good opportunities. I mean, this Berthoud schedule is pretty rough in terms of 2A, 3A competition. You're playing, all the teams that just listed out are all playoff teams. So Wellington's going to be a contender this year. You have Res Christian, University, and Eden, who are always in that mix. One of them, it feels like, is almost always a dark horse in some sort of way contender, but those are all teams that will probably make the playoffs. And then you have Thompson Valley, who are the 3A defending state champions. That's a physical team that you would like to play well against. So there's going to be opportunities for Jayce to go out and earn some offers, earn a better future and better opportunities for himself this season. I think he can. There's some things that I really like that he does well, but could still go a little bit of a ways to be a bit more well-rounded. And I do think maybe having more opportunities will help round him out just a little bit more. So there you go. But either way, rooting for Jayce Newbill going into his senior campaign in this 2025 season and wishing him and Berthoud all the best of luck in the fall. All right, now the next player we are going to talk about hails from the 1A classification in the star two-way player Azariah Hurtado, 6'1", I believe 160. I want to say He plays for Monte Vista down over there, and he has been a star for them on both sides of the ball. And so we're going to talk about him both at wide receiver and safety. But let's start with the stats here. Sophomore year, got some real play here and really got going in, I want to say, 9 games, had 20 receptions for 342 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. On defense, I think he was playing a bit more corner, 52 tackles, 5 interceptions, 3 pass deflections, also forced 3 fumbles. But then going into his junior year, he really took a massive step forward here, was an all-PMC guy for us. But in only 8 games, 35 receptions, 876 receiving yards, 13 receiving touchdowns, 69 tackles on defense, 8 interceptions, 6 pass deflections, and 3 fumble recoveries. I believe all the stats I just said there are all career highs. So he had a breakout season last year for sure. Was an all-PMC guy, award finalist. I can't remember if he won any or not here. I mean, it was a while ago. Those are the first awards that we do. But definitely an award finalist in a number of different categories, and definitely an all-PMC guy. And so he's been a star on the 1A level, and going into his senior year should be exciting. But let's talk about what makes him great. Let's start with his wide receiver film. Gave him an overall grade of a 75.55 based on his junior year film going into his senior year. Here are his 3 highest grades here. So speed, gave him a 4.3 out of 5. Contested catch, 4.25, and that could even be higher, to be honest with you. I'm contemplating that. And then a 4.2 for agility. Look, he has good speed on the 1A level here, and it is very obvious. You know, he rips apart defenses that are out of position, and he is somebody that is always a threat after the catch. And then his speed just in general, I mean, it makes him somebody that you could just run him on a fly, and he will outrun anybody in this classification at least. And that's saying something. Even the 2A classification against some teams they played, he will outrun people there. So he has good speed and good agility. After the catch, he is definitely somebody who is dangerous with the ball in his hands. But on top of that, he has made some pretty crazy circus catches, just some physical catches with a lot of contact there, where he's just mossing defenders and making plays over the middle. And I mean, he has really good hands. He has some very strong hands, and it is very apparent when you watch the film. Now, his 3 lowest grades, let's talk about it. Give him a 6 out of 10 for frame. I mean, listed at 6'1", probably closer to 6 foot. 160. It's not the worst. I mean, he's not like a super short receiver, so that's, I mean, always a good thing. But he's in that 160, probably 150 range, to be honest with you. If he could even get to a playing weight of 170, I think he would be in a very solid spot as far as playing on the next level. But it is definitely light. And then I gave him a 3, which are more so default grades here in release and blocking. That just means I haven't really seen a whole bunch. I mean, with his release, I feel like he's given a free release most of the time, and there aren't many teams that will get up and press him, or at least I haven't seen many clips or videos of teams pressing him and then him making a play after. So would like to see that definitely be refined. And then blocking, just did not see a whole lot of it. I mean, you got to keep in mind he is somebody who plays both ways, so much of the film is that. So there you go, but that's just me nitpicking. Looking at all the grades here though, let's start with the ones out of 10, at least for wide receiver. Frame 6, versatility 8. Really, I think the only thing holding him back from that being like a 9 or something like that is if he got more carries or played more on special teams, which he does a solid amount, or was more productive on special teams. I'm meaning touchdowns there. So there you go. Hands, gave him a 7.5. I think so. Here, I'll talk about it right now. The contested catching rating is higher at an 8.25 because I do think he has the ability to go up there and make some tough catches. But I do feel like that it could be a little bit more consistent. It's lower because the consistency is probably not as high as I would like for it to be. And I would like to see him have more receptions. I know Monte Vista isn't exactly a team that's going to air out the ball a whole ton, and last year was probably their, I guess, best chance of him getting more looks as a wide receiver, so there's that. But I do have some concerns, just a little bit, about the hands on a consistent basis, so there you go. And then route running, I gave him a 7.4, which is solid. I think his separation is good because of his athleticism, but he could definitely refine that a little bit more. Now, for his grades out of 5, blocking 3, ball skills 4, I think it's solid enough. Release 3, agility 4.2, speed 4.3, acceleration 4.1, contested catch 4.25, route tree 3.8, run after the catch threat 4, jump ball 4, tackle breaking 4.1, and balance body control 3.9. For an overall grade of 75.5 here. While undersized, he has some real speed and some great ball skills here, or at least the ability to make tough catches. He does not get a lot of opportunities, but he for sure makes the most out of it. He's shifty and can accelerate with the best of them. I would like to see him get bigger, but other than that, I think he's an underrated receiver with big D2 potential. On this level, he is a game breaker, and it shows with his great athleticism. Would love to see his route running improve, but I believe that comes with opportunity. Same with the hands. I want to see a little bit more consistency. I mean, that's just volume as well, though. So, I don't know. That grade will definitely probably go up when I do evaluations for top 5 senior film. So there you go. But let's talk about him at safety, where I do have a higher grade for him. I went ahead and gave him a 79.55. Here are his highest grades here. I gave him a 9 for versatility, which is higher than his receiver part because I think he does a little bit more on defense than he does on offense there. Then I also gave him an 8.6 for straight line speed and form tackling. So let's talk about that. So speed, we've already talked about. Form tackling, I mean, he racks up a lot of tackles, and you don't do that without being a good tackler. So there you go. And I do like his form tackling for the most part. It's consistent, to say the least. Now, his 3 lowest grades, give him a 6 in man coverage ability. That is more of a default grade. I just did not see a lot of man on his film. And then gave him a 3.5 in finesse / power, block shedding, and hit power. Like I said, did not see a whole lot of opportunities for him to make direct contact and go make a tackle. I feel like he's just using his athleticism most of the time, which on this level, I mean, you do what's most efficient, but he is productive, right? So I am going to give him just a hair higher than the default grade of a 3.5. And then the hit power, I think it's solid enough for someone at his frame. So there you go. Give him a 3.5 there. Still not great, though. But overall, let's talk about all the grades here, starting with the categories out of 10. Frame, 7.5. Versatility, 9. Main coverage ability, 6. Zone coverage ability, 8.5. I think he's great in zone. Actually, I really enjoyed watching him play zone and being able to read plays. Straight line speed, 8.6, and then play recognition gave him an 8.6 as well. Grades out of 5, agility, hit fluidity, 4.3, acceleration, 4.1, hit power, 4.1, finesse block shedding, and power block shedding, 3.5. 4.1 for pass breakup ability, 4.25 for ball skills, 4.1 for form tackling, for an overall grade of a 79.55 here. He is one of the best two-way players in all of the lower classifications. At safety, he is very involved in the run game, consistently getting in there to make tackles. While I'm not saying completely how he is getting in there, as in, like, if he is, consistently just shucking a block and getting past somebody or just running past somebody. I assume, from what I've seen at least, it's more so just running past people. I am tentative about his block shedding grades, but we will see. If I get to see a little bit more, then I will adjust that. He is a ball hawk, though, with good speed, fluid hips, and great ball skills. He is very productive in forcing turnovers, especially in big games against solid teams, and has made some pretty great catches. I am concerned about his frame. I wonder what he can do in man, but I think he's an excellent athlete poised for a big year. And as of right now, June 24th, I looked around on the social medias, could not find an offer yet, and he is a multi-sport athlete, so there you go. So no offers as of June 24th, But that could definitely change. And here's some big games here this season. So, first off, here's the thing with Monte Vista. They are losing a lot of seniors on both sides of the ball, including their quarterback on offense, which is going to be tough. So, we're going to see if this next quarterback could get the ball to Azariah Hurtado here. And then on defense, I mean, he is one of the lone returners here. I assume he's going to be productive either way. Now, here's some teams that are always pretty good here year in, year out that I think he could have big games against to start. August 29th, they play Alamosa. That'll be an opportunity. They like to throw the ball a little bit there, so defensively, maybe you could get involved. And then that's probably a team that you really need to be able to score against, too. So production on offense also matters. Then on the 12th, they play North Fork. That's always a solid team there. Week after that, they play Pagosa Springs. That's a very physical team here. They have a star of their own that we're going to talk about later on in this episode, and so he's going to have to get involved in the run game to go ahead and stop him. And then at the very end of the regular season, on the 31st, they play arguably the rivals, I would say, in Centauri, probably for the league title here. That's a team that always has athletes. We'll see. I feel like that's going to be a tough game here, but definitely some playoff implications there. Not like massive. I don't think, I mean, depending on how both teams do, if they're both doing all right, I think they should probably, I mean, they're not going to move one or two spots out of the way if they win or lose this game. So there you go, but still a big game. I mean, that's a league game, a league title game, really. So a big game against Centauri always matters. But either way, rooting for Azariah Hurtado, rooting for Monte Vista this upcoming season, and wishing them all the best of luck.
Hey, y'all. It is Kodey Stoffer here with the Playmakers Corner, and I have an evaluation for this episode today for A1 Colton Lucero out of Pagosa Springs. Now, Colton, he had himself a very solid season and has kind of been in award talks over the past few years. And I want to talk about his numbers first before jumping into my film evaluation of him. So as far as a career goes, he's gotten looks since he was a freshman, honestly, and had a real breakout season this past season. But his freshman and sophomore year, he had 137 combined carries for nearly 800 yards and 9 total touchdowns. Those are the opportunities that he had the most of. But this year, once again, just to emphasize, was really his big year. Granted, he also got snaps on defense as far as racking up over 90 tackles, 8 tackles for loss over those first 2 seasons. But this year, defensively, he had himself a pick 6. He had a forced fumble. He had 3 sacks. He had 73 total tackles. But offensively, this is what caught our eye, and this is what he's being evaluated as, which is a running back. He had 215 carries for 1,862 yards and 21 touchdowns here. He also notched 12 receptions for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns as well through the air. Some notable games that he had when you look statistically: in a 1-point loss against Centauri, he had 226 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Against Monte Vista, he had 360 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 22 carries. Monster game here. And then he would run for over 100 yards for every single game after that until the last 2 of the season here. But a very notable one here is against Bayfield. 33 carries, 400 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Also notched a reception in that one. But yeah, the game that I was able to watch through NFHS, I thought it was a pretty balanced game to watch and one that, would give me the most to give him feedback on. And that is the game against Gunnison. Now, Pagosa Springs ends up losing this game 25-41, but Colton still has a pretty solid game. It is a season high in receptions with 4 receptions for 25 yards. And as far as the ground goes, 28 carries, 169 yards, and a touchdown. So pretty tempered, I guess, compared to some of the other things that he has going on. Obviously, it's not no 300-yard game, but, it is, it's worth noting, I guess is what I should say. And yeah, it gave me a lot of opportunities to give him feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and go through his film analysis now. Yeah, so with Colton's film here, there's a couple of things that stick out. Obviously, I read out the reception stats, and so his receiving categories are just a little bit smaller because they're just a bit unproven here. For contested catches, I gave him a 2.55, which on a 5-point scale doubles into roughly a 5.1 out of 10 points. I gave his hands a 2.9. For run after catch, I gave it a 3.3. He catches a couple screens in this Gunnison game and does turn upfield, and combined with his vision scores, I think that's fair. And then his route running, I gave a 2.8 here. He does a good job at delaying his release, but still lots of room for volume here. And with that being said, I just realized I did not clarify the categories to you. So these 4 categories that are all receiving categories, they are scored out of 5, along with categories such as first level vision, which is initial blocks and the line, second level vision, which is reading and reacting to linebackers in secondary. Those are other 5-point categories. And then the other 4 5-point categories are balance and body control, elusiveness, which is cut ability, tackle breaking, direct contact, tackle shedding, stiff arm trucking, etc., and pass blocking. So those add up to 50 points, and then we have 5 10-point categories for running backs. That is frame, versatility, acceleration, straight line speed, and agility. So continuing on this trend here, I'm going to go through the rest of the 5-point categories here. His first level vision here, I did note that at points, he does kind of pipe for the outside here and should probably just cut inside and take what the defense gives him based off of his line. So with that in mind, I gave that a 3.45 out of 5, which when you double that goes to a 6.9, which is nice, but definitely room for improvement. He does still show some patience in the backfield that does show some upside to me. But his second level vision is what's even more impressive in a surprising turn of events. I gave it a 4.2 out of 5, which roughly doubles to an 8.4. He manipulates secondary players so well. Corners and safeties have a hard time tracking him, and he does a good job of kind of weaving and making those lanes and even utilizing the middle of the field a little bit more, or just taking really good angles to the sideline once he gets past that initial muck that is up front in that first level. Other 5-point categories here, balance and body control. I gave his balance a 3 here, which is going to seem really weird considering his tackle breaking is at a 3.9. But the thing about his balance is that he is constantly getting swiped at the ankles and is not really shedding off ankle tackles, at least in that Gunnison film. And that is going to be an issue. You cannot be getting shoelaced, especially at 5'9", 160 and trying to initiate contact. You got to be able to just rock through that and recover a little bit better. So his agility and balanced body control are kind of hand in hand here, and both need to see some improvement. His elusiveness / cut ability, I graded at a 3.4. Like I said, he can weave once he's in the secondary here, but there's still room for improvement as far as actual jukes or anything like that, or just making cuts a bit quicker, especially behind the line of scrimmage or off of that initial block. Now, other 5-point categories, his pass blocking, I actually gave this a 3.6. I think he's a pretty sound pass blocker. He works very well out of the play action, picking up. He also has a level of physicality that he brings to blocking. He even lead blocks on a quarterback power, but he is constantly getting the right guy, squaring up, hitting him right in the chest, and he's not getting driven back. He's actually very low and in control. So I do like his pass blocking here at a 3.6, which would double to a 7.2. That is higher than a ton of running backs that we see in the state, but I just hesitate to bump it up a little bit more because of his frame, which I'll get to in a second. Tackle breaking here. This is his best 5-point category that's not the second level vision. I gave his tackle breaking a 3.9 just because when defenders meet him at his pad level or higher, he typically does not go down. He will bounce off of tackles and will continue to run in a very like LSU Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of way. but not as heavy set, but just in the matter of kind of bouncing off and then continuing to chug along here, or just falling forward in general. He also has a pretty decent stiff arm when he does utilize it as well. There's not a ton of runs where he just trucks somebody and runs them over and continues, which I think is kind of what puts you into that 4 category here. But a 3.9 I think is pretty fair, maybe even a hair generous. 3.8 might even be a little bit more accurate. But regardless, it is one of his strengths as a runner. Now, on to the 10-point categories here. His frame, like I said, 5'9", 160, that might be a bit generous. He wrestles in the 145 class. He's wrestled in the 150. I obviously am going to assume that during wrestling season, he's going to be a bit lighter, and he looks a bit heavier than that on the film. So I put his weight right around 160, and his listed height is around 5'9" as well. So I think that's kind of where he's sitting at. He might be 5'10", not entirely sure. There's not a ton of information on his height and frame, but just kind of from looking at the field, going off of what is listed and where it is listed, that is what I've put together here. And so his frame is sitting at a 6. I definitely think it's a little subpar here, at least for higher levels of college football. And I definitely think that he might want to bulk up if football is his choice. And he should come into the season at least a little bit more bulked up, hitting that weight room, getting a bit stronger in the legs, a bit stronger in the core as well. That's going to help out with the balance and body control and the agility as well, I think, if he's just a bit more powerful in the legs. Now, for versatility, I give this a 6.3. Initially, it was a little bit lower just because his receiving was a little bit low, but I like the fact that he can catch. I like the fact that he can pass block, and I also took into account his defensive capabilities, where, he has, over the course of his career, put together some pretty solid numbers as far as defensively, having over 100 tackles, having 13 tackles for loss, notching 5 sacks, a pick, a fumble, stuff like that. Now, he still is undersized, and I would definitely not recruit him as a linebacker, but it is something where that knowledge of the game, I think, translates pretty well. So I gave his versatility a 6.3, something that's not super overwhelming, but still solid. Climbing my way from bottom to top here, his agility, I have graded at a 6.8. Once again, I think that this is just solid, and just as kind of a reminder here, 9s and above are like 5-star qualities or high 4-star. Anything that's 8 or above is kind of 4-star or maybe very high 3-star. 7s and above is definitely that 3-2-star kind of area, and high 6s is knocking on 2-star, I think is the best way to put that. But it's definitely not a strength of the game. I think that there's not like a ton of jukes or spins or big cuts that are really shown, at least against a solid Gunnison defense that I trust more than watching a Bayfield defense or something like that. But, I think that I kind of talked about it in his second level vision. He does a good job of reading and reacting against corners, against safeties, and even against linebackers, kind of outmaneuvering them on that second and third level. And so that is one thing that really helped this category out, is that change of direction. I think it moves pretty smooth. I think that when he does decide to change direction, it doesn't look super strenuous, and is something that I can give him kudos and props for. So that's why it's sitting at a 6.8. It is right there to being a 2-star kind of tool or trait. And lastly, you have the speed category, straight line speed and acceleration here. Now, this is where things get interesting because we do take into account track times, and looking at this dude in track, he is legit. When you look at just what he's been able to accomplish in track, it's pretty legit here. At multiple invites, finishing in first place at the 100-meter. His best 100-meter is 10.75, and over the course of the season, it just got better, starting at 11.24, then 11.16, 11.14, 11.10, 11.04, 10.97, 10.88, 10.86, 10.85, 10.75. Just incredible work climbing up here and continuing to improve. He also has a best of 22.12 in the 200-meter. So those consistent 11s are something that did a lot, and even climbing into the 10 that really sparked this high straight line speed category here that I ended up giving him a 9 on. Now, I think that there is room to translate that to the field just a little bit more, and that's obviously why he is aiming for the sidelines is because he has that breakaway speed. And yeah, I think that when you account for that, and obviously the acceleration is also going to be there at an 8.75, that is what makes Colton such a special athlete here and is what made him so dangerous over the course of the season here. And so those categories are heavy hitters. You can't, at some point you can coach speed, but also genetically, there are some players that are never going to be able to run that fast ever. And Colton being able to do that is what allows him to get away with being a little bit smaller. All right. So looking at Colton Lucero entirely as a prospect through the 5-point categories, across his receiving categories, out of those 20 points, he racks up close to 10, which when you have a vast player like that, I'd love for him to be used a bit more as a gadget. There were some jet sweep looks that he could turn into wheel routes or just flat routes or just more looks out of the slot, I think would be really, really good for his recruiting. I think that bulking up is also something that could help him with recruiting and just kind of like reassessing his kind of agility, balance, body control a little bit. Obviously, he's a solid athlete. You can see that in his speed, and you can see that in his running style, why he's trying to get to the sideline. But address that first level vision. Take what the defense gives you. Not every run has to be a 20-yard run. Be patient, develop that, continue to be a menace on the second level because you're faster than the corners and the safeties that are trying to chase you down. Keep running track, but I'd love if he could get up to like 175 even by the time the season starts. I know that's a little bit of a big ask, but if he can maintain really high speed in the 170s to 180s, then I think that there might be some opportunities on the D2 or NAIA level for Colton just because of the kind of athlete that he is and that speed that, just progressively got better through the track and field season. And if he could just turn the field into a track and just be a track star on the field, that has translated very, very well for other players. My overall synopsis, I said, Colton here is an electric back who's capable of ripping off some large runs and provides an element of blocking and physicality to this football team. I think his vision on the first level leads him astray to the sidelines too often, and in a weird turn of events is much better at reading corners and safeties on the next level of the defense. His opportunities to catch aren't often, but he's not a running back that you have to or should take off the field on big downs due to his pass blocking and ability to catch the football. I know he's big into wrestling, but bulking up is imperative to a future in football. If he can get more reps from the slot as a receiver and they use him a bit more gadgety, that could lead to some serious excitement. His speed is his biggest tool and asset and is what makes him an interesting prospect. He's also got to reduce the ankle tackles, so if he could just bulk up top to bottom, but he can play the same play style and wind up with a grade in the mid-70s, he will be a good prospect. Look for him to maybe be a Western guy if he ends up with another historic season, end quote. And that Western is talking about in Gunnison, that Western University for football, the Pios. I think that he could be a good fit there. I think that his speed could make him a very good complementary back. And if he can continue to develop his catching ability and his receiving ability and just get more looks at that, I think he could be a pretty solid gadget guy here. A comparison that comes to mind is kind of Austin Eckler coming out of Eaton. He was 5'8", 180, and he proved to be a very versatile back at Western, and that's kind of where his path got carved out. He obviously got bigger and stronger as the years went on to becoming an NFL running back, and I'm not saying that I see that for Colton necessarily, but as far as just an electric athlete who proved that you can't take him off the field, I think that that is the best way to approach. Austin Eckler, he was a 4.56 guy back in high school, and Colton is even faster than that. So it's hard to not imagine him ripping off a pretty nice career kind of through a similar method where Eaton's a 2A school and Pagosa's a 2A school. But, I'm not saying 1-to-1, but that's just kind of what I'm envisioning. So that's my breakdown on Colton Lucero out of Pagosa Springs. Looking forward to following him this season and seeing what all he accomplishes.
What's up, guys? You're listening to the Playmakers Corner podcast, and we're doing some player spotlights. I'm going to be talking about a 1A player. He plays interior offensive lineman for the Badgers, he is none other than Keagan Mellot. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Either way, he is a dominant interior offensive lineman. Let's jump straight into it. He's 6'4", 300 pounds, and that gives him a score out of 10 on our frame of an 8.65. If you guys don't know, we use a spread breakdown that just breaks down each individual player out of 100. There's multiple categories, some worth 5, some worth 10. Some of his top categories are his strength. He's a very strong, blocker. He finishes blocks. He has no problems getting there. That's another very good thing that he does is he finishes blocks, like I said. He always is finishing his, hits. That's 4.6 out of 5. And he also has a great ability to pick up a blitz. Another thing he does very well is his contact, his head, his shoulder positioning. He initiates contact. He's not afraid of it. That being said, in his film, if you watch just his film from last year, that shows time and time again he plays center, so he is the one at the point of attack, does everything and anything in his possibility to do so. He has very good reaction time. It's a 4 out of 10. He's definitely a reaction-based player getting to the second level and doing whatever he has to do. Now, going into a few things that he does pretty well, he definitely is quick, and at his size, he's very quick for getting around the outside. He's the only center I've seen in Colorado do a center pull, other than probably, Valor or Cherry Creek linemen. Strength definitely isn't an issue for this guy, being able to just absolutely bulldoze over his competition. He's an acceptable pass blocker, does a very good job at the point of attack. A very high IQ type of player. I think that's why they allow him to pull block and do different things on the offensive line that you wouldn't see out of other guys. Like I said, he's the only center to do a pull block that I've seen. A few things I think he could work on are probably his first step. It's not the fastest, but it is definitely in the right direction, and he could work on that very easily. He needs to get a little bit lower. I know he's 6'4", 300 pounds, but getting high can kind of get him out of position at times, and that's something I noted a few times over his film. He gets out of position. He knows where he needs to be, so he gets back into position. But against a little bit higher level of talent, I feel like sometimes that could be a struggle. He needs to work on a little bit of footwork. I think he relies a lot on his strength at times, and he'll end up slowing his feet down to maybe even getting him to stop at times and just manhandles them, which is good against smaller players, but at the next level, which I definitely think he can play at, he is going to need to work on that. Looking at, just a few things overall, he had a 78.1. That's a very good grade. Last year, if you look at some of our top guys, they were in the 80s. This guy, I'm judging off of his junior year. So has the room to grow, and I think he definitely could. They have a good coaching staff over there at linemen, so they're going to keep him working and just moving on towards the next step. His hands, giving a 3.6 and a 3.8 on pass protection. I think that those are both stuff he could work on and improve on. Even though he needs to improve on them, it doesn't mean he's not doing them properly, just sometimes not as much. Combo blocking, they don't really ever combo block with him, so you don't see it a lot in his film. When you do see it, he does it okay. Doesn't make it to the second level every time, which is kind of the point of a combo block, so that's what he needs to work on. But obviously, he can one-on-one block, and that's what they're really worried about. So he's there. Getting to the second level is something that he does, but he needs to be a little bit better at and getting to the right spot. Now, overall, I think that he did a very good job on a lineman team that last year kind of took a step back. While Lyman is always one of the top schools and just very good in their division, they still went, 9-3 if you count playoffs, losing to Ford's Christian. But even then, they could take that next step, which I intend for them to take. I definitely think that they're going to take it this year. So him leading this offensive line as, one of their seniors and being able to just push this forward, I definitely think that Keagan can take that step as a leader on that line and just push them to that next level. As far as this coming up season, I feel that Keagan Mellot should be somebody that you watch out for. I definitely think that he's a guy that could make our top 5 list and be a force to be reckoned with out there for those lineman Badgers. I think they're going to use him all over the line. I personally like his film as a sophomore and stuff as a guard. And I kind of think he's a very good center, but I think he's a little bit big to play center at 6'4", 300 pounds. But I mean, wherever he needs to play on that line to get it done, I definitely think he'll play at the next level. As of right now, I'm not seeing any offers or anything of that nature. He doesn't really post much on social media, which isn't a bad thing, but I definitely think he has just the size alone plus enough talent that he could go potentially D1. I think he's a better fit for a place kind of D2, but high-level D2. I think he'd be a great fit for a CSU Pueblo or maybe even, a Colorado Mines. Somewhere of that nature, I definitely think he could fit in and do an amazing job. I think that he has a lot of work to do and he's a bit of a raw talent, but that's nothing short of just working and keeping doing what he's been doing for the last 4 years. I'm really excited to see what this guy has to do. I'm going to have to make it out to a lineman game this year just to see what's up. Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. This is the Playmakers Corner. I'm Mason. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for rocking with us. Make sure you check out all the other player spotlights that will be coming out for Colorado High School football. We will also be doing Colorado Girls High School flag football later in July, so be on the lookout for those. And then show us some love on social media at Playmakers Corner on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that great stuff. Leave a comment. We appreciate all the support. Until next time, we'll catch you later.